most ruthless drug lord in history, and at the
What's
moment
up, YouTube
believed to be
family? Day 6.
El Mencho, the
100 squats, 100 calf
world's
raises.
most
Let's get it.
diabolical cartel, CJ&G. El Mencho needs very little introduction. We are talking about a drug lord who was the first to take the battle to the doorstep of the Mexican military, and the only one so far to threaten the sitting attorney general by sending him the severed head of a pig. He even triggered a terrorist-level event in the city of Guadalajara to facilitate his own escape. That is all the introduction you need as proof of ruthlessness. And in the years since, most people were sure that no one could outdo him. We were certain that there wouldn't be anyone worse than El Mencho. But as it appears, we were a little short-sighted because the violence that El Mencho began in his 30s to put his cartel on the map, El Neto had already accomplished before he even turned 18. Ernesto El Neto Piñón is what one would consider a cartel prodigy. If we rank drug lords by their lowering degrees of lack of empathy, El Neto would be at the top, ranked above El Mencho. And I'm going to tell you why in a moment. Born in the state of Chihuahua, Mexico, 1989, El Neto's early years are a mystery. However, we know that by the time he turned 18, El Neto had been a drug kingpin long enough to be considered a serious threat to the peace of the entire state of Chihuahua, and more specifically, the bustling city of Ciudad Juarez. He was in charge of one of the most fearsome street gangs, and he led a wave of robberies, kidnappings, and gruesome killings that shocked everyone. The teenage kingpin's method of warning his rival gangs was by sending the heads of their members in ice coolers. His reputation eventually earned him a role with the Sinaloa cartel as an enforcer, and it is believed that he worked very closely with El Chapo at some point. This affiliation and his subsequent reputation wasn't lost on the police or the state, and it didn't take long for them to decide that the teenage crime boss was a problem. Eventually, El Neto was arrested in 2009. His sentencing was scheduled for 2010, but those who captured him didn't realize he wasn't the one who needed to be kept in prison. It was the prison system that needed to be kept away from him. The police had no idea what they were getting into when they captured El Neto, and you cannot blame them. An 18-year-old kingpin doesn't exactly inspire the kind of dread that one associates with cartel heavyweights, but they almost paid for it back in 2010, because despite his age, El Neto had managed to inspire a cultish level of loyalty in his men, a loyalty that was on the level of the Sinaloa cartel members who had colluded to free El Chapo twice. On that fateful day in 2010, El Neto was on his way from prison to a sentencing hearing at Chihuahua State General Attorney's Office. He was heavily guarded by the police and was bound to receive a 200-year sentence for kidnapping. All of a sudden, an armed group blocked the government vehicle at a roundabout and began a shootout to rescue El Neto that lasted for hours. The plot failed, and El Neto lost his right eye in the process, transforming the kingpin from a babyface killer into a monster with looks that were consistent with his brutish nature. But the lesson here wasn't learned, at least not on the part of the government. They had learned that El Neto wasn't the kind of killer you throw into a prison's general population. Neto was a leader. He was the kind of guy that people levitated towards, the kind that people would want to follow. So when he was sent to Cerezo No. 3 State Prison, a penitentiary that sat on the borders of Ciudad Juarez and El Paso, Texas, a prison that had a history of violence and prison riots, a prison that was overpopulated and overrun by prison gangs, it reflected the point I made much earlier. The government still has a lesson to learn. And unfortunately for the citizens of Ciudad Juarez, they were the ones who would pay the price. In February 2016, Pope Francis paid a visit to El Neto's prison.
Pope Francis visited a Mexican prison during his last full day in the country. The prison is in Ciudad Juarez, which borders El Paso, Texas. The visit is very symbolic because the site represents a series of social problems Mexico faces.
One of the many reasons for the Pope's visit was a devastating prison riot that had happened some weeks before and had left 3 inmates dead. Unsurprisingly, El Neto was at the center of this prison riot.
That's 3 cents.
I used to be pretty clueless about shopping, among other things. Like, when I heard I could save by getting cash back as racketeering, I was like, as if. Then I was like, why didn't I do this sooner? Ooh, you can get cash back on all the fashion, even the most capable outfits at your fave beauty stores. Ooh, eye cream. Not that I need it.
And number 4.
And I'm pretty much whatever. Who put that there? In conclusion, you have to be butt crazy to shop with that racketeering. Cha-ching. Hello. Do I even get a rebuttal? I'm sure it'd be brutal. Whatever.
Aren't you a little old for high school?
What?
I remember the first time I thought something was wrong.
I was getting headaches at school.
I thought the fact that I couldn't see the board was my fault.
Our vision, it's everything. That's why we wanted to provide affordable eye care for everyone, as long as you have a cell phone. You and your loved ones can take control of your vision.
So I can ride my bike.
So I can see the most important things in my son's life.
So I can watch the sunset.
Right. He was just 27 at the time and had already served more than 5 years behind bars. One can imagine he was president of thousands of inmates who listened to the Pope give a sermon of peace, reconciliation, and faith. But the Pope's sermon was for lost souls, and El Neto had no soul to lose. Because 5 years before this papal visit, immediately after El Neto got out of prison, the young anarchist had allied himself with the leader of a street gang known as Los Mesicles, Juan Eduardo Soto, aka El Lalo. Like Neto, El Lalo was also young, brutal, and a proven leader. Lalo also happened to be an agent of chaos. He ran the prison with an iron fist, and along with El Neto, caused so much violence within prison walls that it spilled into the city around them. A year after Pope Francis's visit, El Neto was at the forefront of another prison riot against a rival gang called Los Aztecas in 2017. This riot led to the death of 17 people. In 2019, the duo sparked another prison riot, and the death toll almost doubled. 26 people lost their lives. Meanwhile, members of Los Mesicles outside the cell allied with the Sinaloa cartel and became their enforcers. And it was at this point that the authorities began to see how much of a problem both El Lalo and El Neto had become. So what was their solution? Well, same old, same old. The divide and conquer technique. They took out the head, transferring El Lalo from the state prison he was in to a federal prison, the Federal Center for Social Rehabilitation, CEFRESO, number 15, located in Villa Camatitlan, Chiapas in February 2020. By now, you should know that removing the head of a gang or cartel will lead to either of two eventualities: unbridled chaos as the cartel or gang splinters and tries to find stability, or a fiercer, more ruthless gang takes